All right. Hey, everyone. I'm here today with Stella, who is an ambassador for the Interkultura, which is sort of like an Esperanto literature contest, right? And so I have to apologize up front for those who are watching this stream on my Esperanto channel. We're streaming in English and in my Esperanto channel at the same time. Though eble ni parolu iomete Esperanton later on in the stream. So thanks for coming on my channel, Stella.
Bonan matenon. Hello, everyone. I will just keep like adding some Esperanto words so we don't totally disappoint the Esperanto speakers here.
Perfect. Yeah. So I guess, do you just want to tell us a little bit about what this contest is?
Yeah, sure. So this competition is about writing short stories. And so the idea came from the fact that many events had to be canceled in the Esperanto community as well. The big ones, the small ones, and this is specifically from a group of people who were organizing the Canadian big Congress. And basically they are just literature lovers. So they love reading in Esperanto. And they thought that this would be a topic that could actually show what is happening around the world, because the topic that they chose is about the pandemic. So how it changed us, how it changed your life. And so the idea is to collect short stories from, everyone. And then let's see how it affected our lives. And because the competition is also about encouraging people to write in their own language and then translate it to Esperanto. So you need an Esperanto friend for this to participate. But the idea is that the language itself will give, a very good reach to different cultures and different people, and to be able to collect as many different experiences as we can.
Yeah. It's cool how so many different things have adapted to the new COVID environment, like the online IOCO last year. I attended that. That was really cool. And, NASC and a lot of things are online. So this is just another way of doing that. It's funny. I really like the idea of this contest, partially because one of the big objections I hear from people a lot of times when they tell me that I shouldn't learn Esperanto is they say there's no native speakers and there's no literature. I'm like,
yeah. I'm a native speaker and a writer, so okay, let's move on.
I heard you wrong on 2 counts.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that this contest is kind of founded based off of the cancellation of the Montreal Universal-Konkurso.
Yes, precisely. So it's a bunch of Canadians who love reading in Esperanto, and they are, of course, very disappointed, and they were very much looking forward to. I mean, what you have to understand that a congress like this is in the making for at least 2 years. So when you have to cancel it, it's horrible. I'm also an event organizer, and it's tough. I was helping actually the IOCO that you've just mentioned, the Dutch team, who also had to cancel their event, and it's heartbreaking. So they try to make something good out of it, in a way, just to collect what happened, and they also love reading. I mean, it starts with that. You love reading in the language, and you would love to read, original material written right now and contemporary stuff, and just see what happened with people. Yeah.
It was heartbreaking. I actually am a huge fan of Montreal. It's one of my favorite cities to visit. So when it was canceled, I was like, oh no, that was my best chance of ever going to the Universal-Konkurso.
Maybe next year.
Yeah, I was gonna say, but now the Montreal one is now just postponed to 2022, right?
Yes, that's the idea. Yes.
And that ironically, that actually kind of works out better for me, because I later found out I would have to be in Thailand during that one. So now maybe I actually will have a chance to go to the Universal-Konkurso.
Yeah, let's hope.
Anyways, can you explain a little bit of like the rules, the format of this competition, and just for those who don't know how
Of course, of course. So we're looking for short stories. I mean, they don't have to be true, right? They can be fictional, but most probably you will be inspired by your life and what happened to you. So anything, it can be what happened, what's happening right now, how you imagine the world after. It can be about anything, but it clearly will have some kind of connection to the pandemic that's happening right now. And so it's up to 12,000 characters, which is well, it depends on formatting, but it's less than 6 pages. But it doesn't have to be that long. That's max. So it can be tiny. It can be just a few sentences as well if you have a really catchy, like super short, tiny story. And basically, there are not many things to know about it more than that, because you're very free to use this idea and just go with it. So yeah, this is the most important part.
It should be fiction though, right? Like it's not for writing factual essays or is that
it's not an essay. These are short stories, but it can be something that happened to you, or you can totally change it or tell someone else's story, or it's up to you. But usually you start with thinking about the most impressionable moments in your life probably, and then you try to put that into a story somehow. Yeah.
Sure. And so, is this the first iteration of the Interkultura?
Yeah.
Okay, this is the first one. Will it start to be an annual thing or something like that?
Well, the idea would be yes, but I'm not allowed to say that. So no, because it's just a try. So
Sure.
The idea came because the Congress couldn't happen, and the idea is to try, and then there are topics every single year that we could pick, to write about and to see how it affects the whole world. So it's really my job as an ambassador is basically to try to reach everyone and maybe convince them to write a short story about where they are in the world. So I'm trying to, organize meetings with people and just conversations with people around literature, like whoever I can get my hands on, basically.
Good. Yeah, and also I guess we should mention part of the reason that we're doing this interview in English is because it's not an Esperanto. Well, it's an Esperanto competition, but it's not only for Esperanto speakers.
Yeah, you need an Esperanto friend though. Like you need someone that it has to be submitted in Esperanto, because the jury is 9 Esperanto speakers. So and to be able to compare. But the idea is that you can write in any language, an original short story. Of course, it shouldn't be published somewhere else. This should be an original new work that hasn't been published yet. And then that's how you can compete. So you need a friend or someone, or get it translated, and then you can send it. Yeah.
And so you said the jury, the judge. There's 9 judges.
Yeah.
Will be reading. Okay. And do you know how that process is going to go? How they're going to select the winners?
No idea, because I'm not in the jury. Probably they will read them all and then pick somehow. But the jury is also from as many cultures as possible. So it's not just Europeans, which is of course a challenge of the Esperanto community, because the biggest activity is happening in Europe, or let's call it the Western world. But the jury is also very, very intercultural. So from different places as well. Yeah.
And is there a prize for the winner?
Yeah, there is a prize. Should I have started with that? Do people write for the prize? Yeah. The winner gets 500 euros, and second place 300, and third place 200. So if that's the motivation, why not?
Right. Well, I just bring that up because if anyone is on here watching and saying, why would I want to get my short story translated into Esperanto? I don't even speak Esperanto. Yeah, but anyone can use 500 euros.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. And so, have people been submitting their content already?
Yeah. They have. But it's also very clear that everyone is waiting last minute. So I even people who have already like finished writing, they are like, yeah, I haven't sent it yet. So yeah, that's also my task to a bit like remind them, like, okay, you still have 2 months, a bit less than 2 months because it's the 20th of June, the deadline. But like, you could already send it, don't forget about it. So yeah, there are some already, but of course we're waiting everyone last minute, submissions.
Sure,
Yeah.
it makes sense. I mean, I also started writing a short story for this competition as well, but it's like I'm always nervous. I am that kind of person who waits to the last minute to send in to turn in my papers or whatever, because I'm like, I can always make more changes and stuff. But
yeah, I was the same. I submitted my final thesis 3 minutes before the deadline, I think.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Well, and then they came back to kick me in the butt one time because my professor, he put a hard deadline of 12 p.m. and he said, I will not accept anything after that. And then I forgot to turn it in one time. So I got a 0 on my term paper for one of my classes. It was terrible. Anyways, but that won't happen. I promise. I'll turn in my short story.
Well, now everyone hears that, everyone's hearing that you're actually going to write something. So I encourage everyone to go after you and make sure that you send your short story.
For those who don't know, though, people, like I mentioned earlier in the stream, a lot of people have told me that Esperanto isn't a real language because there's no literature.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about the role that literature actually does play in Esperanto culture?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's a fair point. It's very difficult to imagine this, thinking like, is everything a translation then? That's the question I'd get the most, thinking that no one uses the language itself to write stuff, but everything is translated. Well, that's not true. Ever since the language existed, there is literature. Already the creator of the language wrote poems and stuff. So it's like it started from the very beginning. I think, of course, there is less. So it's less impressive, the amount of literature there is. But that doesn't change the fact that there is literature, and this competition is also trying to encourage people to think about writing, even just a short story, like a one-page story. And of course, I mean, if you think about it, you are about languages, so you need to read. Reading is a skill. You need reading skills to learn a language, and people are seeking sources to be able to read. So that's one thing. And writing is another skill of learning languages. So many people practice by writing and then they continue to do so. Yeah,
exactly. Right. One of the things I always tell people that you need to do in a target language is just read as much as you can. It's one of the best ways to learn vocabulary.
Yeah.
Just to saluton, Paul. I've been kind of ignoring the comments here, but saluton to everyone who is watching.
Saluton.
Yeah. Now, what is going to happen to the stories after the competition is over? Are they going to be made public somehow?
Yeah. They electronically for sure, and then with print, that's still a question. But
Okay.
It depends on how many stories there are, and of course there are many people who are not allowed to compete because they are part of the teams or the organizers, and they are themselves writers. So I'm not allowed to compete, but I'm also writing for the competition just because I find the topic, inspiring. I want to explore it for myself, but of course I'm not allowed to compete. So depending on the amount that we get, and of course there is some editing. So I cannot say that it's going to be printed. If you send something, it's going to be published in a book. No, I cannot promise that.
Mm-hmm. It's a possibility, though.
It is a possibility, yeah, because it would be interesting for people to see this kind of experience. The stories next to one another from different parts of the world, and just to really get an impression of how people are, impacted by what's happening. And I expect a lot of very happy stories and very hopeful ones, and some quite tragic ones. That's I'm looking for the whole range of emotions. I wrote a very depressing story myself, like super depressing. I thought, why did I write this? And the funny one as well.
Yeah, good. Yeah, well, I mean, if the theme is how COVID-19 has affected us, then you could go anywhere with that.
Technically, it's how it has changed you, but
how it has changed us. Yeah, how it has changed you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mensmo says, saluton, sed mi ne komprenas anglan.
Saluton. Ĉu vi havas demandon? Pardonu, yes.
Yeah. Se vi volas demandi ion Esperante, vi tute rajtas. But yeah, that's another motivating factor for me. Not just that I'm gonna send this story in to be read by 9 judges and possibly win some money, but it's kind of encouraging to think that I will be possibly contributing to Esperanto literature for future generations.
Yeah, the idea would be to encourage people to write, but also to read in Esperanto, because it's true, it's not that easy to get Esperanto books. Like, it's not like you go into a shop and then in the foreign language section there is an Esperanto section. Well, not yet, at least, but it's more difficult. That's the reality. So many people read blogs or electronically, and so this would be also something to find people who actually like reading, because sometimes we give up. We think, it's not that easy to find the books. We cannot just browse. And I understand that that's something that stops you from reading, or you don't know which book to choose because there are many, but like based on what, you pick based on what you're interested in reading reviews, or you want to yourself like read inside, is this too difficult language or not? And that makes it a bit more difficult to read in Esperanto. That's true. So this could also be a bit of a push to find the literature lovers, and to really encourage people to just try.
Right. Yeah, I've been reading a book called, I'm sure you're familiar with Gerda Malaperis.
Yeah.
Have you read that? Have you read it before?
I haven't read it, but I know about it because everyone mentions it.
Yeah. It's very nice because it's very easy to read. So it's kind of on my level, but man, it's not the most interesting story.
No.
Yeah, it's okay. I mean, it's what you would expect for a learner.
Yeah, but I totally understand, because for me, this is not just with Esperanto. So my other native language is Hungarian, and the only time as a kid or as a teen I started being interested in actually reading, like not just compulsory stuff, but like actually reading, was when I discovered that there are actually contemporary writers. The way we learn literature is everyone's dead. All the poets are dead. We read old stuff that just doesn't speak to us, And I asked other people, like, is this how you learn literature as well in, your country? Like, is it very similar that you don't get to the contemporary stuff? You almost get the impression that books were written in the past, stories were written in the past, and of course some can be relevant today, but many of them are very outdated, or you have to have a certain feel for the age or the era it was written in. And for me, also in Hungarian, I started like actually the reading, the skill itself, when I discovered that there are people who write right now. And these stories I can relate to. And it's the same for me with Esperanto. I don't really read in Esperanto because it's just, and because I'm a native speaker, there are books and books and books and shelves of Esperanto books at home because my mom bought them. And I just never felt like picking any one of them up. I would pick it up, I would look inside, and it was just like, no. But when it's about contemporary stuff, I'm like, yeah, I'm interested in that. That's something. The language would be, also fresher in a way, I'd say. References, yeah.
Yeah. And that's part of the beauty of this. It's so contemporary. If you're reading a story about the coronavirus, you don't need to know when it was written. You already know that it's modern and it's contemporary. And that's another thing that I think is really interesting. Right now, I've been seeing a lot of YouTube videos and Instagram stories, stuff like that, of people wearing masks, doing different coronavirus related things. Well, it's funny because this is such a short period in history, like maybe 2020, 2021, I don't know, possibly into 2022, we're going to be talking all about coronavirus. But then for the rest of history, people are going to be looking back, and anytime you see a picture of people wearing a mask or social distancing, you're going to remember, you're going to know exactly when that was from. And I think that's really interesting. So, if these works do survive into the future, it'll be really cool to look back and see a snapshot of the way that the world was in 20.
Yeah, but that's what we keep doing. It's also, in a way, I'm an art teacher actually by training, and I think it's incredibly important that we somehow digest the experiences. So to be able to write about it, it's quite traumatic. What's happening, and to be able to write about it and just write it out, that's a very good way of, in a way, dealing with the topic, right? So that's one thing. And you mentioned pictures, so there is a tiny photo competition as well, because we would like to find the cover of the book, even if it's just electronic. So if you have a photo that you would like to submit, you can also win like €150 for that, or a picture or something that you think. Yeah. Is good for this theme, then there's a possibility to, for that you don't need to know Esperanto. So
So no matter what, even if you have no interest in writing or in Esperanto, there's still a possibility to win €150.
Yeah, if your photo is chosen, or a picture, or just whatever art you make,
Paul Howlett asks, what is the word limit for this writing? You mentioned that earlier.
It's not word, it's in characters, so it's 12,000. So it's like around, how much? I don't know. It's around 2,000 words. Based on how much I wrote, it's max. That's the max. It doesn't have to be that long. It can be half a page. If it's really good, it doesn't have to be that long.
Yeah. I think the one that I'm writing right now is about 500 words, and that's like maybe 2 pages max. Okay, so it's a character. You said 12,000 characters is the one.
Yeah. Is that the word for it? Now I started out myself.
The characters?
This just the one. Yeah.
Yeah, one character. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. I was like, am I saying the right thing here?
No, okay. Okay, so Stefan G says, there's a big unused treasure of literature because so many books are not available as ebooks. And if they're available as ebooks, they are not available on the big ebook platforms. Yeah.
I would love to work on this, honestly. I would absolutely love to work on this, to create ebooks and to make it much more accessible for people to read stuff. We have to catch up to the real world. Yeah. The Esperanto community, in one ways, is super revolutionary, and in other ways, it's just lagging behind 19th century stuff. So we need to find ourselves. Yeah.
Yeah. When I went to NASK a few years ago, I had a friend bring some Russian Esperanto literature, like music books from the Soviet Union from when he was a child. And I was looking at these and I was like, man, somebody needs to like scan these and preserve them, because that's history. So.
I don't think that people understand how many books there are, but they are physical books and they're difficult to get your hands on. So there is this huge amount of literature that we at the moment do not really have access to. That's true. And at the same time, it's not everything to just read stuff from the 20th century, because we are well in the 21st century. So yeah, I find it important to read contemporary stuff as well. Yeah. I can't get over your name just because I'm Hungarian. It's just like the first time I saw it, I thought it was a mistake. I was like, is this has this person found just this weird combination of words?
The story behind that.
I can't get over it.
My name means in Hungarian. You'll just have to Google translate it, I guess. But the story behind that is I went to Hungary when I was 16 years old, and this was the first word that I learned, and I thought it was hilarious. Of course, because I was a 16-year-old boy. So I started using this as my username on all of my, on RuneScape and all of the video games and everything. I made this my name just because I thought it was funny. But then my email address and everything, my YouTube account, they all stuck with me into being an adult.
How old are you?
31.
Okay, so half your life, literally half your life, our jokes are funny. Okay.
Well, it's funny, when you're 13, 14 years old, 16 years old, you don't think this username that I'm creating now is going to be my username, because especially back then, the internet was, I guess, not quite as, I don't know, it was sort of a novelty for me. I didn't realize that the whole world was going to be run by the internet pretty soon. Here, Paul Howlett says, can you recommend some contemporary Esperanto books?
Oh, what's the title? I have to think about the title. Zdravka Metz wrote short stories that are about her another native Esperanto children. And I think it's wonderful. I think it's Biedoj en nia ĝardeno. Bestoj en nia ĝardeno. Oh my God! Can we just put it below?
You can go ahead and leave a comment whenever this video is over.
Yeah, I love those. That was supposed to be published actually for the Congress in Montreal. It's a collection of short stories. Zdravka writes beautifully, and it's beautiful Esperanto, and they are just such heartwarming little stories. So I would totally recommend her.
Excellent. Another just small technological problem that I think Esperanto writers run into in the nowadays in modern era is I don't know if you know this. I wrote a series of books for people who are learning languages, just short stories, and I had them translated into multiple languages. So, for example, do I have a copy of one right here? No, I don't. But one was Zombia Coramikino, and then I had La Eta Draco, and then these were just translated, into Spanish, French, English, Esperanto. Then I wanted to go host these on Amazon so people could have them on their Kindle devices. And someone left me a 0 or a 1-star review on my Esperanto version because I think the diacritics, the hat letters in Esperanto are not compatible with the Kindle Paperwhite devices.
Okay.
I can't say that for sure, but for whatever reason, the file that I used to write my Kindle book in Esperanto was not able to be read by this person's device. So he left me a terrible rating. And I was like, well, that's not really fair because the paperback is like, you can read that, but
Oh, we are horrible.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, it's okay. I mean,
toughen up. You're now part of the Esperanto community.
I complained about it on Twitter, and then everyone was like, "Yeah, that's the nature of offering products on Amazon or trying to sell a book or a product. Like, there are people who
are horrible.
Hate you. Yeah. Here, Verda Coraco says, "Mi legis vi protokoloj de Zdravka."
Zdravka, that's her name. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Estas tre interesa rakontaro.
Yeah.
Bone. Memoro tion.
Yeah. I'm wondering, have you met native Esperanto speakers? Like, what did you think the first time you met, or when was the first time you thought that there might be like Esperanto native speakers? Because it's not default.
Well, I believe the way that I first found out about Esperanto was through Wikipedia, actually.
Okay.
I was reading about micronations on Esperanto.
And then you went down a Wikipedia rabbit hole, clicking on stuff.
Yeah, 100%. And then I found, one of these micronations had Esperanto as its native language. Well, what's that? Like, it's a made-up language, you know? But then I started reading this Wikipedia article, and I'm like, there's millions of people who speak a made-up language, and they teach it to their children? Like, but part of me also thought it was kind of cool, but then another part of me was like, why would you do that? You know? And then, I was reading about there's native speakers and stuff like that. It was a few years later, actually probably a decade later, before I met someone who was a native speaker, but it doesn't feel at all strange to me now. It feels very normal. I remember, have you seen the YouTube video where it's a small boy and the dad says, "Cooper, ¿qué estas via okuloi?" You know?
Yeah.
Via okuloi. And then he says, "Kuloi," you know, or "Oreloi, okuloi." It's really cute, you know, but it doesn't seem at all strange to me for a parent to do that to a small child anymore. To teach
more than one language, actually.
Exactly. Yeah. But I also remember learning about there's a book written by a man who taught his son Klingon, and apparently he's the only he was the only native Klingon speaker in the world, and that did strike me as very strange because he didn't have anyone to speak to.
Apart from his father, and then this comparison is always made, you know, Esperanto and Klingon, and the comparison is fair in a way that I understand the feeling of the attention you get when you're a native speaker. Like as a kid, that is that depending on your personality, that can be very challenging. That it can be too much because people want to speak to you. Oh, cute, a cute little one speaking Esperanto so fast. Wow, probably you're a native speaker, you know. And it can be too much, and I'm pretty sure that this is what happened to the native Klingon speaker as well. It's not the fact that the language was Klingon, but the interest from all the geeks who were interested in meeting this person and wanting to talk to this specific person. It can be a lot, and now I'm an adult. I look like an adult. No one would know I'm a native Esperanto speaker. If they socially don't know, how would they? Yeah, they wouldn't.
Exactly.
My accent will not, you know, give me away. Like it's obviously influenced by my other native speaker, Hungarian. So I do have a slight Hungarian accent when I speak Esperanto. So you know, you just wouldn't know. You just wouldn't know. So if someone is really tiny, you assume, you know, especially if the kid is fluent and chatty, that kid is probably a native speaker. But as an adult, I mean, it's not tattooed here. Not yet. I don't think so. Yeah.
And that, I think, also raises some questions that a lot of people are interested in. So if you, as a native speaker, also have a Hungarian accent when you speak Esperanto, is there
a slight
accent? Is there such thing as just a pure Esperanto accent, or someone who speaks Esperanto with no, you know, is there a standard accent?
Nice try. No, well, there is a standard accent. I mean, it's described how the words should be pronounced, right? I mean, this is how we know how to speak Esperanto, because based on the letters, where would we put the accent, right? And what would we do with it? But everyone is influenced by their other native language, so it's not possible. And of course, ever so often in the Esperanto world, we drive for perfection as if it was ever achievable, right? And it's the same with accents. We just want to find someone who has the perfect accent and just be able to listen to that. No, there isn't. Some languages will help you with having a better pronunciation, and some will not help you because, for instance, you don't have those letters or the sounds, or it's more difficult for you to pronounce things. Many have with the R, or to understand things, with the het.
Yeah,
right?
the het letters, right?
Yeah. So no, there is. I mean, we would love to. We want to be perfect, and we want to speak the language perfectly and without, any error. And they expect that from native Esperanto speakers as well. But we learn the mistakes from our parents. Our parents are not like perfect speakers either, even if they have a wonderfully high level. We will still mishear things, especially that we don't go to school. So it's not that someone else will correct things for us. Like, just think about any language you learn as a native, and if you go to school, you read a lot, you have to write in it, you have to practice. It doesn't mean that you will just inherently understand the grammar of your own language unless it's pointed out to you. I mean, Hungarian is bloody difficult, and the grammar is not easy for Hungarians either to understand it. And with Esperanto, it's added difficulty that mostly it's a spoken language for native speakers, not for the ones who are trying to learn it, because you will try to find the resources, listening exercise, like you will try to read as much as you can. But for native speakers, it's very much a spoken language, and not many people, if you chat with your friends, then you write the language, but that's not literature. Like, that's not, you don't even write proper sentences when you chat with people. So also because of that, native speakers many times speak like much worse Esperanto than those who actually learn it, and that's something that is sometimes incomprehensible. Is that possible? That a native speaker who usually give the standard of a language in Esperanto, that's like no. No.
Well, that makes sense. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Another thing that people often say to me is, why would you learn a language if you don't have anyone to speak to? And they just don't understand it's a community of people. Esperanto is a very social phenomenon. I have a lot of friends, especially mostly online, but in person too. I've met a lot of Esperanto speakers, and I have a lot of friends who I speak only Esperanto to.
Yeah.
Like anytime, like my wife will see me messaging someone and be like, why do you keep messaging someone in this other language?
So she doesn't understand it yet, even though you have a YouTube channel.
Yeah, no, she understands. It's just I don't know. Maybe she just understands the idea of a crocodilo.
Yeah.
Like it's frowned upon to crocodili.
Yeah, it's very weird speaking English with you.
Yeah,
because that's quite weird. When I know that I could like only speak Esperanto to someone, to actually pick English is like, but why? We have a better language,
Exactly. Yes,
but for the purposes of this video.
All right, we have some more questions here on the side, and in fact, I'm just gonna read them as I put them on the screen. Okay. Mo says, mi eĉ ne havas aliron al libroj krom senpagaj libroj, ĉar mi loĝas en Irano kaj ni estas bankaj sankcioj. Eble mia Esperanto ne estas sufiĉe bone. Bankaj sankcioj.
Nek mi bone komprenas kion vi diras, sed estas limigoj kion vi povas aĉeti kaj aliri en la reto en Irano. Mi aŭdis tion plurfoje. Yes.
Here, the Esperanto letters are definitely supported in the ebooks. It can be a bit tricky to format them correctly. Okay, maybe that was my fault then.
It's your fault. Fine, we found who's at fault.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I uploaded my my ebooks as EPUBs to Amazon, so I don't know what the problem was. But I have had people tell me that they were able to read my Esperanto books on their Kindle devices. So I don't know what the problem is. Maybe it works for some devices and not for others. Okay. Mando por Stella, did knowing Esperanto ever help you in school? Oni havas helpeman kromancion de plurlingveco.
Okay. So the question is whether, ever helped me in school? Should I answer in Esperanto?
Whatever you want.
The short answer is yes. The long answer is there are many, many, many examples of it. No, la unua afero pri kiu mi povas pensi estas kompreneble rilate al gramatiko, la fakto ke Esperanto estas alia lingvo. Do kiam vi lernas lingvon, vi devas kompreni ke ĝi estas iu abstrakta afero. Ĉu ne? Lerni alian lingvon, do por mi tio estis en mia lernejo mi lernis la germanan kaj la anglan. Kaj mi pensas ke la fakto ke mi ŝatis gramatikon aŭ ne estis io kio suferigis min, ĉar por mi estis tute facile. Mi pro io komprenis la gramatikajn regulojn ofte. Tio estis unua afero, tio estis kiam mi estis tre juna. Poste, ekzemple rilate al geografio, ĝuste pro la internacieco de la komunumo kaj amikoj, mi tre bone sciis kie estas landoj, kie estas diversaj urboj. Iel geografio estis tute facila, ĉar mi daŭre rigardis la mapon pro miaj amikoj, do tio ankaŭ helpis. Estas multe da ekzemploj. Yeah, just to summarize it. So basically with languages, I mean, that would be the obvious one, that Esperanto helps with languages. And actually, I didn't understand it at the time, but looking back, I think because grammar is difficult and there is this stupid idea that you should teach languages through grammar. I don't think that's only in Hungary. We are so grammar heavy that's the way to learn languages, right? And for me, grammar was, of course, the grammar of English or German. They are not easy at all, but somehow I felt that they were not that difficult. Like somehow I could just, I don't know. Okay, I still had to learn it. It's not that I was, suddenly like speaking other languages, but it is very clear that there was help there from Esperanto. So I didn't suffer when it was about grammar, but it's grammar heavy, everything, education related with languages. That's my impression, as I'm sometimes a language teacher myself. And the other thing is geography. I mean, it was so obvious that I would be very familiar from a very young age with many countries, like where they are, not just the capital cities, but other cities as well, because not everyone lives in capital cities as you think as a kid. Like you learn one city and then you think everyone lives in Berlin in Germany, right? And I would be familiar with many, many, many cities that you don't learn about usually because people live in different places, and like Kazakhstan and just places that's not where you start. You start with the neighboring countries. But I would think, okay, I know a person here, I know a person there, and so geography would be a very, very obvious choice as well. That it was very helpful because of the social aspects of Esperanto. Sure. Like it cannot be undermined how social it is. Yeah. And that speakers are literally everywhere. Like literally, like I will challenge you to find someone in a place where no one speaks Esperanto. Like for a day maybe you will think I found it, and then it's like, oh, actually this person.
I never knew that there were so many Esperanto clubs so close to where I live. I live in a small city, and as far as I know, we don't have a club in my city, but 1 hour south in Chicago we had one. Well, now I live in Bangkok, but when I was back home, 1 hour south, people, there was a club, and then half an hour north, and then, 20 minutes west of where I lived. And it's like, where were all these Esperanto speakers, and why have I never heard of them until just a few years ago?
Yeah.
Anyways, we have greatly diverted from the theme of the Interkultura. I do
it's
hope
all connected. It's all connected, though.
Sure. It's a web of Esperanto connections. I do hope the people who are watching this stream will consider joining the concurso, whether they speak Esperanto or not. Before we finish, do you have any other thoughts or anything else we want to mention about the contest or about Esperanto or anything?
It's just words of encouragement, also as an art teacher. I think art is very important. Mm-hmm. So, even if you're not going to write for this contest, or I should encourage you, and of course, write for this competition, being able to just do something with your feelings in any form of art is already very good. So just practice a lot of art. We need more art in the world just by default. And we need a lot of art in Esperanto as well. And if you've never, considered learning Esperanto before this, maybe you'd like to give it a try. Maybe.
This could be the nudge. You could win €500 and then start learning Esperanto.
That would be impressive if someone started learning today and already be able to submit literature level work in 2 months. It's a challenge.
Well, like you said, it could be a 2-sentence.
If it's very good, yeah. Can be micro. Maybe someone, okay, that would be funny.
Yeah, new challenge. Try to win the concurso with a 2-sentence micro novel.
And prove that you started learning today after this video.
Yes. Yeah, you have to show us your Duolingo tree and when your start date. No. Okay, thank you very much, Stella, for joining, and I highly encourage everyone to participate in the challenge. So,
thank you so much.
Yeah. Bye-bye.